So if you know that, okay, what you're doing is not just for yourself, for them as well, then you know that they are the ends, they are not the means.
What is that one myth about leadership that you listen very often in?
Controlling cost is something which is like overcoming your weakness.
Weakness.
There's only so much
Everyone wants to be a CEO, but nobody wants to do what a CEO does.
constantly happening, right? So in that sense, you are never away from work. It's not about
Compare those three buckets. What is the change that you observe?
more like a autocracy, right? That you were told what to do and you did that. I can make the most beautiful movie ever, and if I make it in language which people don't understand, it's not as much on output as much as how you're training your mind to think logically in a sequence and rationally, right?
That is where AI is really useful. But as an escaping tool, that's not.
There are people at the end of the day. You are not talking about equipments and machines. You are dealing with people. So people look at every person as a lock. Okay, every lock is different in number. Therefore, every lock has a different key. So what drives each person is different.
This entire conversation also reminds me of the misperception people have about leadership, because from outside, when I talk to people who want to be a leader, they assume that leadership is a glamorous thing. They believe that leaders live a very different kind of life, and they get all the best of everything. But something, and this came up in a conversation with one of my mentors, and we were talking about that everyone wants to be a CEO, but nobody wants to do what a CEO does. As a leader, I would love to know that what are some of the sacrifices you make, which maybe your role demands by default.
I think one of the biggest sacrifices is sacrifices on time, right? As a leader, uh, you're not bound by that 9 to 5 kind of a schedule, right? Because you are constantly at the back of your mind, you're thinking about people, about your goals, how to achieve them, how to make things work. You're not at work, but you're still at work. That kind of a thing. It's like if you had your own business, right? You are kind of 24/7 subsumed in that, right? But yeah, you're seen more as working in that scenario. But here as a leader, it's sometimes things which are going at the back of your head, right? Like I'm having conversation with you, but somewhere in the breaks I'm also thinking about, okay, how I'm going to manage my day, what are things that I need to achieve the day, and how am I going to kind of try to get people together, make things work and stuff like that, right? So that's kind of constantly happening, right? So in that sense, you are never away from work. It's not about whether you are responding to emails at 2 in the night or 4 in the morning or stuff like that. No, it's not about that. It's just that during the entire waking time, something or the other, you're always kind of constantly thinking about how to make things better, bigger, make things work, or some days it could just basically be, okay, how to starve off a disaster, right? So you are kind of constantly on the go. It's not that in the early days of my career, I could switch off at, even if it is late 8 or 9 in the night, but I could switch off and then say, okay, fine, now whatever happens, let me look at it the next day. Sometimes as leaders, you're just not able to do that. And so that's the first sacrifice that goes out the window. So you have to learn to manage your time and your well-being also better, right? It is and in that sense it is kind of stressful as well, because there is practically no switch off time as such, right? Yeah, you're just kind of prioritizing at this point, keeping things at the back and saying, okay, let me take this break and then come back and then again get back to that, but it never goes away as such. So that's one. Secondly, uh, you are you are also constantly required to take care of people's well-being, right? And oftentimes place their well-being more than yours, right? When the organization is going through good times, it's easier, I would say. Okay, but when it is going through tough times, then there's a lot of questions which are asked, a lot of things which need to be answered, explained, accountable, and all that stuff happens. And at these times, even people go through stressful moments. So how do you kind of uh, protect them and make sure that they have the right frame of mind to be doing their own piece of work as well, or their side of the bargain that they're able to keep up to. is something that you would be working on. So in that sense, you kind of sacrifice your own self as well, because your own, uh, you know, again, don't get me wrong. There will be times when you want to take care of yourself first, right? There will be times at some point or the other, but for most of the times, no, you're kind of prioritizing people before you. So that's the second sacrifice that you make, right? These two kind of stand out for me a lot more. Rest, I mean, not to be confused this with a work-life balance or stuff like that. This is totally just what your role demands here. Work-life balance, you're still able to achieve to some extent.
Something in my mind was buzzing that next question that I'll ask you would be around work-life balance.
Okay, maybe it was buzzing in my head as well because it's a clear segue into that, right? So, work-life balance is again, there are two answers to it, right? One is practical, one is philosophical. The philosophical one is the easiest one, and then you would have heard read it many single time, many places, many times, different people saying it. Stay in the present, right? Okay, so what you're right now, what you're doing, you enjoy the present here with. Okay, so that's the philosophical answer to it, right? To manage work-life balance. If you're in the present, then kind of nothing else matters. But practically speaking, that's not always possible. Like, just few moments that we were talking about, I'm sitting here, but during the breaks, I'm also thinking about my planning my day and, what are the things that I have on my plate for today, tomorrow, day after, and even sometimes even for next week, next month, right? Something that you have to kind of start working today on that. So all that stuff happens. Uh, but you kind of try to segmentalize it, right? You can't at a point beyond a particular point, you're not able to kind of put off everything forever in sense of having clear compartmentalization, right? So what you do is you kind of take smaller intervals. Let's say, okay, I'm on a vacation, fine, I'm going on an outdoor activity, then those 4 hours I'm focusing on that. But once I'm back, I have a break. I also kind of catch up on my work, or whatever I have to do or think, or maybe have some conversations, plan that. So it's all about planning your day and thereby achieving different goals. uh, Initially, in the beginning of your career, just like beginning of your life as well, you got like single targets, then you have 2 or 3 goals, and then you have multiple goals. And as you grow up in your corporate life as well, you have multiple things that are happening. It's about balancing all those. You can't just say that, okay, I'll focus on one thing only and only this thing, sorry, and then get back to the other thing. So there are always going to be multiple skewers in the oven, right? And you have to kind of keep checking on each of those, whether they're cooking properly or not. Okay. In that parlance, so you will have to multitask. Multitasking is not doing many things at the same time. It is about doing a lot of things in the same
Sequentially and
in the
very
same time interval, but
focusing
focusing on
one at a time. And that's like one of the things about multitaskers. They're very good at switching. Like they move into one thing,
well,
they do it.
honest admission,
Yeah.
I'm still a student in that. Okay, I'm still learning. I'm not good at multitasking.
Nobody is. Like, I think every scientific study that happens that is proving this point that you cannot work on parallel things or multiple things parallelly. So what people actually do who are like known to be multitaskers, they would dive into something, they would do it efficiently, very quickly, faster than any other person, and they'll just move out of it and do next thing. So what they're doing is basically they're very sequentially switching from one thing to another, not doing it together. But a layman like me might be looking at them and say, oh wow, he was able to do these 5 things in an hour. He's a great multitasker. So the perception of multitasking, at least, is this is how it is happening. It's like one thing, second thing, third thing, quickly move out.
Hmm. True. And the more you kind of compartmentalize and the more you kind of keep those intervals short, right, the better you get at it. Is my learning, and currently I'm trying to follow that. Okay. And one of those compartments is also about your personal life.
Your
That's how you end up balancing work and life as well, right? You are never away from work totally. You're never going to be away from personal work also. Like, I have got aged parents, right? So some days my parent needs to be taken for a doctor's appointment, right? Some things they can do by themselves, something they're dependent on me. So if they're dependent on me, they're dependent on me, right? So I
Right.
can't shy away saying that, oh no, I have bought this. So somewhere it's also about planning ahead that, okay, this is priority right now. This is the time that you need to kind of take them. So you kind of make sure that your day is free during that time for you to be a good son, and then you come back and be a try to be a good manager as well or leader as well, right? So you try to be good in all those aspects, and you try to compartmentalize and balance things. That's the only way to achieve it, is what I feel, right? uh, and the more compartments you are able to create in a day, the better it is, because uh, the duration of the compartment matters. The longer the compartment means you are not multitasking, you're kind of going more sequentially rather than concurrently. At the same time, you know that you cannot do many things at the same time. Therefore, you have, instead of having 4 intervals of 6 hours each in a day, if you're having 24 intervals of 1 hour thing, then you can manage 24 different things also, right? Yeah, some might take longer. I mean, some might take lesser time, but then yes, the potential to manage more things is better if your compartments are smaller in duration.
Uh, so you have a very deep philosophy while you're highly strategical as well in your approach, both at work and life. Pretty much like a monk who keeps a sword sheathed all the time with him. So someone who comes to you, and this again is very personal, that I'm asking you, Srini. So when I look at you, perhaps you've tried to put success as balancing work, life, and achieving a balance among both. What happens if somebody raises their hand and say that for me success means, and that's a very young person, he says that for me success is primarily just managing my life, not work. So what would be your response to that kind of categorization of success? I see that happening with young generation. That's why I'm asking that question to you.
Okay, when you say balancing my life,
Yeah.
okay, what goes into that, right? So, okay, and why I ask this question? So I'm not expecting an answer per se, but then this is probably part of the response. Like that, what does the person mean when they say that they want to balance life? Is I think key to understanding the decision, right? If I understand or read between the lines, what that particular generation is wanting to do is they're wanting to have their own fun and enjoyment and stuff like that, right? Or have their own materialistic achievements met over everything else, right? I mean, everything else is a means just to achieve that end is what they feel like. uh, then it is a kind of sense of misplaced priorities, right? We spoke some time back about how results follow the efforts, so on, and focusing on long term more than short term. This is kind of exact opposite of that, right? Is focusing on the ends at the beginning, and it's also focusing on short term rather than long term. Okay, so again, my experiences, my learnings from my career and life, and what I've observed around me is this is not the right way of looking at things, right? On the other side, if let's say this words were to come from a person who is at in the middle of his life, right? Has a family, has a kid who's 5, 6, 7, 10 years old, or kid or kids as the case may be, but in that age group and stuff like that, and they're saying that, oh well, I want to prioritize my family time more than my career. I think that's the right choice that they're making, because that's good for their long term also. It might seem like a short term, goal, but it's a goal for the short term, but to actually optimize the long term. Because once they get that thing set up right, everyone wants a comfort at the end of the day. Everyone wants a safety net, something to fall back on. And uh, in a uh, in a slightly philosophical sense, life is what is happening outside of office work, right? It's not just those within those four walls of office, right? So your work is a part of your life. It's not your life.
Your lives.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think people need to get that perspective.
Well
So
said, really.
if it comes in a pecking order, then choose your family first. Absolutely no questions on that, right? If it comes to picking one. Okay. And if you have that sense of your priority also set right, then you are going to be, you're kind of prepping yourself up for long-term success. Because what's the end goal of a career, right? End goal of a career is your own satisfaction, your growth, and also growth for your family and people who depend on you, right? So if you know that, okay, what you're doing is not just for yourself, for them as well, then you know that they are the ends, they are not the means, right? And this, what you're doing, is the means here. So you have that sense of uh, I would say a perspective there to things. So if you're looking at it from this perspective, then your head is and mind is at the right place. But if it was the first one, then I'm sorry, it's a wrong sense of priority, and you need to relook at things of how we are approaching things is what I would say.
Uh, your responses are so profound, like they're throwing my brain into multiple dimensions simultaneously, Srini. So
I'm happy if it does that.
yeah, it is seriously like putting me
Please
into
ask me
brain freeze
follow-up
because
questions.
there are multiple questions that are popping up in my mind. So we were talking about this generation. We are talking about from a generation point of view, and you clearly are someone who have seen multiple generations. So like when you started your career, you must have seen people who became leaders in 90s, and then you became a leader, and now as you've grown and you're reaching the top of the hierarchy, you've seen young generation taking leadership roles. So when you compare the leadership style of those who were your leaders when you started your journey versus now the leaders that you observe from young generation, philosophically, what is the shift between, let's say, your visionary leaders earlier, you when you became a leader, and now the young generation which is becoming leadership? So if you compare those three buckets, what is the change that you observe?
Okay, you are getting my mind thinking in different directions, right? So with this question, um, again to this as well, in response, I would draw parallels with parenting in general, right? Uh, Leadership styles have undergone change. Parenting has undergone change as well. I mean, to speak of one thing, when I was a kid, I listened to my parents, right? And I'm sure it's the same for all people of my generation. We were talking some time back as well, right? There was no way, no chance in hell that you could even question back saying that why should I do this? I mean, if your parent, especially if your father told you, and in some cases the mother was a stricter person, so if either of them told you this is what you will do, then you did it. You never asked a question, never turned back, right? So and then but now with a teenage son myself, I mean everything is a negotiation now, right? So I ask him to do some things and then I have to explain why it is good. Sometimes he understands, sometimes he doesn't understand. He has a mind of his own, which is both good and bad in a way, right? And it's just the way that things have evolved, right? Uh, Life goes on, and evolution is one constant among everything else, and things don't necessarily evolve in the right direction. They suddenly evolve in the wrong direction as well. You take some good, some bad, always goes along. Similarly in leadership styles as well, not that what was old was good, what is new is bad, or vice versa as well, right? There were some pluses and some minuses, and there's always a time relevance of things, right? In the times that you're living by, a particular approach is relevant.
Right.
Like when I started my career, uh, there were more managers than leaders, right?
So true.
In that sense, people just barked out orders and you followed them. You never questioned back. It was more like a autocracy, right? That you were told
Yeah.
what to do and you did that. And if you did what was asked, you were good. If you didn't do, you were bad. Simple. It was a kind of more binary
Yeah.
in that sense. Then as I started becoming a leader, then it kind of became more of a sandwich kind of both sandwich generation as well as a sandwich kind of leadership. Now, why I call sandwich generations, because my generation, we when we were growing up, we listened to our parents. While we are grown, we listen to our kids, right? So we didn't get enough opportunity to say what we want and get it our way as such. But okay, again, jokes apart. Likewise, leadership has become a mix of both authority and empathy, right? And as what I see coming forward is that it needs you to be able to relate to the person, and more importantly for the other person to relate to you. So you have to be more like a pal with people. Funny incident, in one of the office parties, somebody who was a new entrant, maybe 1-2 years into the organization, and I didn't realize it until somebody pointed it out to me, and we were just having a conversation, and this person goes like, bro, Srini, do you really? And I was chatting and I was just talking because it was a very informal kind of a setup, and I was responding to that, and suddenly somebody took me aside, Srini, did you actually listen to what this person said? I said, what? This person just called you a bro, Srini. And I think, oh, is that so? Okay, fine. So, in the sense that, I mean, lingo is just that's a metaphor and example here, probably because you need people to be able to, you need for them to relate to yourself. Because if we had a generation gap in times that we were growing up, now that gap is even seem to be more wider, right? In that sense. So the understanding or the thought is that, okay, you're not able to relate to me, I'm not able to relate to you. So how do you build that relatability factor is more key here right now, right? This generation, I would not say everything is bad, as I said, there's some things were so good, some things are bad. This generation is very good in thinking out of the box. I mean, sometimes they come up with questions which kind of make you go back to the core basics of what you learned, what you have gained in experience and all that stuff. And they question almost like everything, right? Which is good, which keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
And for them, um, why is more important, right? Maybe when we were growing up, we didn't have as much whys. We just said, okay,
What and hows were usually.
yeah, okay. You just tell me what I need to do, I'll do it. You tell me how I need to do it, I'll do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Here now the first question and primary question is why. I mean, why is like 90% of it. Not 90% maybe, but then the next one is how. How is something that I think is required to be taught and learned as well, because I think it comes with the friction that people are wanting to have things too fast, too soon. Okay, that's one of the negative side of things. But the positive side is that the whys have become more important, right? And in that sense, as leaders, you have to be able to relate to them and give them that sense of purpose. That, okay, how this fits into the scheme of things, not just for the organization but for them as well. It's for us as leaders to kind of make them understand this correlation, and then I think that's the right key to get them successful, right? uh, while growing up, we learned that, and this was a part of the consensus building process, right? Look at every person as a lock. Okay, every lock is different in number, therefore every lock has a different key. So what drives each person is different. You have to understand what drives the person, right? And one of my managers kind of taught this to me in a different sense, when he said that, look, everyone has weaknesses without exception. There's no person on this earth who doesn't have weaknesses. As a corollary to this, everyone has at least one strength. Some people might have many, some people might have only one, but everybody has at least one strength. So as a leader, your focus is on identifying what is the strength of the person and how do I leverage that strength to the maximum. We, very frequently we kind of put ourselves in a position where we say, that, okay, I'll work with you in overcoming your weakness and all that stuff. Yes, you do that. That's for the individual's growth and development as well.
That is required.
But at the same time, focus more on the strengths, because that will give you the maximum value. Again, goes back to the example of whether I'm trying to control cost or maximize my revenue. Maximizing revenue is similar to leveraging your strength. Controlling cost is something which is like overcoming your weakness. There's only so much that you can do, because you're starting at a I mean, on one side for the cost there's a limiting factor, but on weaknesses you're starting from a low point, right? From negative point. So you have to scale first to zero and then upwards, right? So it's an uphill task. You're not going to be always successful, and there's only so much that you can achieve in that. So focus on leveraging the strengths, and therefore, here for the next generation also, the drivers have changed. I mean, the keys have changed. Now you had those keys with the tooth. Now then came the keys with those shapes. Then came those key with those punch holes, and now there are thumbprints and combinations and stuff, right? So it's just in similar sense, what drives people? There are still multiple things that drive people, but what drives has also changed, right? As a cluster, as a family, as a group. So identifying that with the current batch of current generation or the current batch of upcoming people into the workforce, and eventually they will be the leaders, right? I mean, that's why I say not everything is bad in them, because they are just relevant to current times, and they will eventually be the leaders. The next batch of leaders is going to come out of this batch only, right?
That's
So
right.
nobody's going to kind of take an avatar and land somewhere and say, okay, now I lead people. So how do you, relate to them, answer to what excites them, what drives them, and thereby, kind of put them on the right track of growth for themselves is going to be the key for the next.
And while we are talking about adaptability, right? So there are two I would like to like your inputs on drawing this parallel. Now, there are certain people who still are stuck in a mindset of early 2000 in terms of leadership. Like you were saying, it was very autocratic, right? So when you were using this analogy of lock and key, so it's like I am the key, and now you as a lock has to adapt so that we can fit together. It's your job to adapt. Now, when I look at the next generation which is coming, and I strongly believe this is very much required, because by like in next 10 years, majority of people will be working with will be millennials. Now it's the approach is like that, okay, if you are a lock, I need to identify you as a separate lock and adapt my style for every lock that I get. What is your advice to both these generation or both these set of people, especially those when I see in the current leadership role, who are still trapped in that same dogma of the authoritative leadership of 2010s or 15s, and who have not managed to adapt their leadership style yet?
Hmm. Okay, that's a a deep question, right? In the sense that uh, it is very circumstantial. I mean, adaptation is very circumstantial, right? I mean, just like you see evolution of different races, it is all races have evolved around the in different on different paths, primarily based on the geography that they're looking at, right? Likewise, the situation that you are in will determine what kind of adaptability that you need in specifics. But in general, right? I think we already touched base on that, in the sense that the relatability factor is going to be the key here, right? I mean, when we spoke of even one's journey in evolving from a level one manager to a level five manager, right? The first step was how you create that that relatability factor among the people, and it creates an aspirational value as well, right? So you kind of make people know that you're one among them. uh, I mean, again, later on I don't have to again start using the bro lingo, but somewhere I need to be able to
Be patient with it. Yeah, be patient with it when somebody
yeah.
says that.
If I start taking offenses to stuff like that, then I'm just creating distance between me and that generation, right? So I have to also travel, some distance
Bridge that, like, yeah.
bridge that gap, yeah, of that bridge. So I first thing first is to bring that relatability, right? Uh, and second thing is going to be the why for them, right? uh, and that why has to be in a manner that they understand, they relate to. It's like I can make the most beautiful movie ever, uh, and if I make it in language which people don't understand, then what's the purpose of that movie? Sorry, right? So in the same sense, the language that people understood 20 years back is different. The language that people, and also on the other side, language was spoken, right? Because it was spoken widely, it was understood widely as well. Now something else is spoken widely, something that is understood widely. So the manner in which you're able to relate to people is also undergone a change. So you need to stay relevant with those times. I mean, at a very generic level, that's what I can say. We have, as leaders, we have to be more adaptable, right? I would not single out and say, oh, this generation has had to adapt among various changes, because things have been evolving. Maybe the pace has picked up, and who knows, the pace will be even faster going forward, right? So with each successive generation, I would say the phases are also getting smaller and smaller, which means that there are more changes seen within the same span of time. We started from no phones to dial-up phones to coin phones to now just
Everything on phone. Everything on phone now.
exactly, and things will just keep on evolving along that trajectory. So what worked yesterday will not necessarily not work tomorrow. I mean, I can say it with some kind of an assuredness that it will definitely not work tomorrow. So you have to, as a leader, you have to adapt to it. Most important, as I said, was the relatability factor and telling them the why. That is something which I see that you just cannot get away with, or get away from, or avoid doing. Uh, this generation is quite bold enough to ask why.
Bye.
Uh, Adaptability. is the key for everybody, not just for people who are coming up in their careers, but also for leaders who are quite well established too. And you just
So the normal dialogue when you're talking about adaptability and generation, the normal dialogue which I see uh, everyone speaking is that, hey, this is a new generation coming. Why don't you adapt to the way this generation needs to work? Because eventually they'll be taking up the space in next 10 years. But I would love to see a perspective wherein somebody talks about what this generation need to do to be more adaptable. Now you've spoken about like that they have short attention span or they want to switch between things very quickly. So we've talked about indirectly that patience and persistence is what is required. What else would your advice be to the new generation who's coming at work?
so I mean, in terms of work, right? There is there's this I think thought which is kind of drilled into people's minds that okay, what you learned in classroom is irrelevant to the real life. Okay, that life is something totally different than classrooms. I mean, in terms of life experiences in general, the answer is yes. But then when you're talking of technical subjects, right? For example, I come from an accounting background. Okay, so what you learn in accounting and costing and stuff like that in your textbooks, is it? It's not that that is totally irrelevant in the real world, right? Yes, in terms of how the whole systems and platforms and processes are structured, you don't always see the end, the
You're not
code at
able
the
to
back end.
link them. Yeah.
Therefore, you're not able to correlate. But then if you look at the basic principles, it's the same, right? What you were taught in your classrooms in school and colleges is what is happening in real life also. Okay, it's just that it is masked in a way that you don't necessarily see the full picture. Therefore, you're not able to relate to that. Not your fault. Absolutely happened with everybody. Okay, until unless you kind of decoded what's happening and how it is set up, you kind of have a sense of disconnect, right? So don't think that what you learned is irrelevant. It is relevant.
I'll interrupt you here because just to add on to what you were saying, I saw this in podcast or some video clip which like they were arguing about the same thing that I've never used, let's say, trigonometry in my life, and the expert was who said that the principle behind teaching you trigonometry was not to ensure that when you're 50 years old you'll be learning to or applying those principles. The idea was that you become more analytical, you become more calculative in your approach. So when you're studying and you're putting all those things up in yourself, it's not just the core knowledge but the way you reach the conclusions, the way you are able to calculate permutation combinations. That learning becomes the core backbone of your life. So it's not just the formula that is useful, but then your ability, your brain's ability to calculate, which adds value to your life eventually.
That's a very good add-on. Okay, I mean that is like point 1.1. I am still at 1.0 in the sense that whatever principles that I learned in accounting and costing, and I'll draw an analogy with costing, and those who are from the domain they'll probably be able to understand better. There's a cost sheet that you learned, direct cost, direct material, direct labor, then there's the cost of production, VAT, there are overheads, and there's the cost of manufacture plus minus inventory, that is the cost of goods sold, and then you add a profit margin, and then your sales price, right? Now, how do you allocate that material is identified? How do you allocate labor and overheads? So there is those machine hour recovery rates and stuff like that, and that's what is happening in the best of ERP systems that you see, right? But because it is not presented in that tabular format, at the end of the day you are kind of wondering, hey, what I learned was totally irrelevant, something else is happening here. But it's the same cost sheet, it's the same standard costing, it's the same conversion of standard to actual variance calculation. That's the same things which are happening here. It's just happening in a different way visually. That's why you're not able to correlate to that, right?
But then in a way you're so fortunate because like your education and your designation right now complement one another. Like you did your CA and then you were
Right.
into finance, and that's where you come across the same principles. But like for example, a person like me, I did my BCom
At 1.2.
and I never tell people that I also cleared like foundation of CWA. Uh, but like when I look at my existing career, those are the things which don't help me directly from concept point of view.
Right.
But the competencies which they build in me, I'm sure that they are helping me in some way or the other even today.
Right. And you know, I will probably digress of this in a minute here as well. Now there are two sides to it, right? This is 1.2, right? And as you rightly said that, you learn trigonometry and calculus and everything and maths. You're probably applying laws of physics is getting applied every single time, right? When you say that, okay, centrifugal force, you're driving a car, you don't realize, but that centrifugal force will work when you're kind of turning radius on a car, right? Okay, you're taking a curvy road. So all that is still happening, and just because you're not able to correlate to it doesn't mean it doesn't have relevance to what you read. On the other side, to build on what you said as well, that subjects like your maths and sciences are taught to you so that your mind gets trained in logical thinking, right? And that's why approach problem. And to some extent, the CATs and IAS are the same, right? I mean, the entrance is made so difficult because that the whole entrance exams and their group discussions and those kind of stuff, interviews are kind of structured in a way so as to evaluate whether you are thinking rationally or not, right? Okay, because once that is said, then of course everything else skill is trainable, right? But this is something which has to be kind of built into. Yeah. So you are kind of filtering people first based on that. That's the core to the job that they have to do eventually, right? MBAs are generalists, but their minds are trained to think in all different possibilities. That's why you have these your CAT exams have your reasoning, logic, and then it has maths, it has GK, everything it has, right? So basically you become more rounded personalities than focused on one track, like number crunching, like us CAs. Okay, uh, so 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 those are the benefits. Now from this, I'll probably also cite an example of whys are important for the current generation. So my mother tongue is Tamil. Okay, and I was telling, and when my son was young, we used to talk to him in Tamil, and he used to respond. But as he grew older and started going to school, the use of Tamil kind of started diminishing, and it's come to a point where we seldom speak in Tamil. So he was 7 years old. You were telling that you need to learn language because it's the mother tongue. He says, why do I need to learn? It's a mother tongue, that's why you need to learn. But his rationale was simple. He said that my friends speak to me in Marathi or Hindi. Teachers speak to me in English. You guys all know Hindi, right? Uh, my attendants at the school bus, the caretakers, everyone, they all speak to me in Marathi. So and grandparents also know Hindi, right? So why do I need to learn Tamil? There's no I didn't have a logical answer to it because only a logical answer would appeal to him. So I was waiting for the right moment. We traveled down south. We went to Kerala for a holiday, and while going around, all the cab drivers were locals. So I used to speak to them in Tamil. They understood because once you know one language, it's easier to understand for the other three, right? So he understood what I was saying. He responded back to me in Malayalam. I understood. Okay. And that's how we made conversation and we went around case and all that stuff. So I took that as an example and told him, we need to learn, right? And this is one reason why you need to learn, because once you know one language, you're kind of covered in all the 4 states, and Hindi and English kind of cover the rest of north and east and every other place. So you'll be able to manage yourself anywhere that you go in the country. He says, I still don't need to learn. I said, what do you mean? I mean, you're seeing an example yourself here. And he was like, I have you, right? Then why do you close the language? So, I mean, for this generation, if they have a tool, they say, okay, I don't need to learn it because the tool will do the same thing for me. Now, we were in a sense of we were kind of thick-headed that we need to learn everything and know everything.
Yeah, and mug it up.
Not just mug it up, but then we kind of we thought of building all the skills in ourselves. Okay, this generation is thinking more of enablement, right? They are looking more at the ecosystem that they have around them, and whatever is available around them, they don't want to focus on that. So they want to focus on what they don't have readily available, so that they only kind of create a niche there, right? We were more generalist; they are more specific into that in that sense of the word. But are they not, kind of supported in the same way? Yes, they are. I mean, we thought of having everything being self-sufficient. They are more open to being reliant on technology and other things that is available, not on people as much, but yes, definitely on technology.
Of course.
So whatever can be supplemented by technology and knowledge that's readily available to me, I don't need to learn. That is their philosophy, right? Which is not wrong, which is just relevant with times, right?
I think
So
that
it's like if I still insist on, hey, you must know this, you must do this, and then only you will learn this. I think somewhere I am the person in the wrong. Okay. It's not necessary to know everything, but it's very important to know where to reach out, what to depend on, who to ask. If you know that, then you're sorted in a sense, right?
Yeah. So true. In fact, like I'm not sure how true it is because sometimes I find it hard to believe, but this has the story like, so Einstein never memorized his phone number. And one of the reasons is because he said that anything which is available easily on a phone book, why should I invest in my brain in that thing? And that is what we are talking about. Like for example, like when I was growing up in school time, uh, or something which we were highly discouraged to do was calculators, because the moment you start using calculator, your own ability is gonna curtail. And couple of days back, I was having this very candid conversation with couple of colleagues and a boss of mine. We were talking about AI. So it was pretty similar to what computers were. It's just an advanced version of it. So every generation is changing, and so is the technology, which is. And while many people are thinking that the AI will make you dumber, another element of it is that it is enabling you to do things which are more complex. Like if, for example, like we invested years in terms of drafting, learning the art of drafting emails. Now you don't need to do that, right? You can simply invest that time in learning some skill or language which perhaps is more future oriented. Basics are of course what you need to know, but in terms of, like, I look at AI as something which is now like now allows me to be a manager. I can train it and I can tell it that, hey, this is what I want from you, and if I've trained it well, it will give me a good outcome. And the generation which is coming is really good at it.
See, I have a slightly different take on that. I'm sorry.
Would love to know that. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but uh, AI is good. AI is not bad. But if I depend on AI for something like drafting an email, right? And this goes back to the use of the purpose of teaching maths and science to everyone till grade 10 in school, despite the fact that they might not kind of make careers out of that ever. So, what does drafting an email, or in the good old days, drafting a letter meant? It was about putting a structure to your thoughts. It's not as much on output as much as how you're training your mind think logically in a sequence and rationally, right? Now, I mean, one of the simplest ways that I always tell people in terms of mail is the first is a citation, right? The subject has to be relevant to the mail. Then the first is an introduction of what is the topic you're talking about. Basically, because then you are orienting the reader to what you're going to say next. Next paragraph is about all the facts and numbers and figures. And then the third paragraph is about what is the ask. Next steps ask, right? And then that's the end of it. So there's just 3 steps to it, right? So by doing that, you're kind of training the mind. If you depend on an AI to do that, then your mind is not learning to think in that structured way. You're depending on somebody else to do that. You're kind of more freewheeling. Yeah, if you say that, okay, I mean, there was this funny quote in here, I don't want AI to do my art and I do the utensils. I want AI to do my utensils. I want to do the art and poetry.
Yeah.
That's a different matter because that's more freelancing, right? But when it comes to work, there are some things that you must do to, and it's not as much to kind of put you in a hardship or anything, but it is to train your mind to think in a rational, logical, or business sense. Whatever word that you want to use, please go ahead and use the word. But that's what it's about, training your mind. You can't let somebody else be your mind, right? That's where I have a disconnect with using AI for stuff like simple stuff like email and stuff. PPTs I still understand, but uh, you know
But then, like, I 100% agree with that point till till the person who's using AI is not leveraging their time to hone some other skill. So, like, if I'm giving allotted, let's say I'm allotted 1 hour to write an email, I go to AI and say that, hey, this is the ask, this is the stakeholder, draft this mail in this tone for me. It does it in 5 minutes. I'm done. What about next 55 minutes? If I'm not doing anything for the remaining 55 minutes, that's where AI would hamper me. But if I move on to do something which allows me to manage up better, right? Let's say reach out to you as my leader and say, hey, what's the report you're working on? Let me give you the first draft of it. If I'm able to invest that next 55 minutes in learning a higher level skill, that is where AI is really useful. But as an escaping tool, that's not good. I resonate with your idea.
in some sense we are both speaking the same thing. You're talking about using the once you have learned, and then using AI to leverage and thereby save time for you, and then do that. I am probably still at the head end of it, saying that okay, first I need to myself learn,
Master it.
master the art of writing and email. Then I kind of am able to give the right instructions to AI also, right? That this is the tone that I want in draft, and this is what I want to convey. Unless I know in my structure what I want to do, then I'm not able to convey them to AI. So yes, so learn that, then use AI, free up your time, and then go about utilizing that saved time effectively for upskilling or for kind of taking more work and enhancing your sphere of experience and stuff like that. Then yes, we both are aligned on.
We are, in fact, like from that point of view, we're absolutely aligned. Great. So, Srini, while we are reaching the final stages of this podcast, I mean, I would love to ask this fun question to you, um, which is not so serious, but I would love to know, like, what is that one myth about leadership that you listen very often, and at the at inside your head you're laughing about it? A couple of misconceptions about leadership.
Okay, I think the first thing is about the very word, right? I mean, when you say leaders, people hear the word lead, and then as a natural extension of that, people think that, oh, you lead and others follow. uh well, it's not that, it's not that you are able to command and then people will just follow that command, right? And you have to develop uh, uh that whole, what do you call that? I mean, aura is a very wrong word for that. You have to
Persona.
that, not just a persona, but it's an overall package where people are kind of open to kind of follow you where you want to lead them to, right? That's that takes a lot of cultivation, years of cultivation, and then it yields results. People think that okay, the moment I get a title, then after that, people will, I will ask and people will do, and
You'll start respecting me, and like things will like fall in place.
absolutely. So that's kind of the first fallacy that the trap that people kind of fall into. Okay. Uh, then the the next thing is also about you know uh, people as such, right? Um, that you're not just responsible for the results, you're also responsible for people. And uh,
Is that a myth, or is it like a fact that you're stating here?
it's a fact. I mean, people kind of, people evolve into leaders and take up leadership roles and think that okay, people are just a means to achieve an end, and therefore, they look at they look at people as resources. Yes, they are a resource, they are a means to achieve an end, but they are people at the end of the day. You are not talking about equipments and machines, you are dealing with people. So people, being people, have aspirations, they have their own paths, their drivers are different, right? And so on and so forth. So you need to kind of uh, you know as a leader, you need to make sure that you are helping people develop along the path as well, right? uh, it's not just about you climbing the ladder, you also have to pull people along with you, right? In the next run, so you can't have like next four rungs empty and then somebody standing at the ground, right? You will have to make sure that those rungs are also populated. The one that you just vacated is also populated, and with the right candidate, right framework, right frame of mind and all that stuff, right skill set, yeah, everything, all the jing bang, it goes with it. So you have to make sure that there's a focus on people development also. It's not just that okay, now I have achieved this, I have a seat and people will follow, and I will
That's delusion.
instructions and people will just fall head over heels to kind of suddenly, sir, I'll do that, yeah, like that. No, it's not going to happen. So that's the, as a first step, which is the easiest to fall into, right? Right now I have a title means people will follow. So no, people have worked with you for longer duration, people know you, and it's still, you need to learn
To earn their
what
trust.
drives people. You need to learn their trust, earn their trust, and you need to kind of give them that sense of comfort that you're taking them along, and that is when they respond.
So a very common thing which I've heard leaders talking about, not leaders, but I would say, higher level managers talking about is that, hey, this is office and this is your home. When you're at work, don't bring your home at work, right? I hope this makes sense. But like, do you think that kind of expectation from human beings who are coming to work is possible?
Um, it is not okay, and I think you know the COVID pandemic has also kind of helped blur those lines. If previously it was uh, people who were managers, they used to kind of take offense in bringing home to work, or taking time off to do some home related work and stuff like that. But pandemic meant that you took your work home. You were working from home practically for like 6-8 months at a stretch, right? And the lines between personal life and official life were all totally blurred. So as a fallout of that, I think more realization has come that okay, if you can take work home, then you can also bring home to work, right? And uh, you know and there's been more sensitivity that has crept in terms of individuals personal needs as well, to support the family. I mean, okay, it might sound philosophical at this point in time, but life is fleeting, right? We never know, one moment things are there, one moment things are not there, right? So people are not there, so everyone wants to kind of make up for some lost time, or kind of make sure that they put in that effort in the personal space as well. So I think as leaders, we have to understand that that is also driving people, right? We spoke some time back about work is a part of life, right? And life is everything, as your family, your friends, your home, all that put together, and work is just a piece of that. So I think as leaders, we also need to understand that work is just a piece. I mean, even if like say during office hours, we are like, oh, this is going to be a primary focus. Yes, it's going to be primary focus, but there are times when you would need people to kind of put their whole priorities above work priorities. And as leaders, we need to understand, and we need to give them that space and comfort, allow them to be able to allow them to plan it in a way that they're able to manage both, right? But at the same time, give them a sense of comfort that yes, it is okay
Okay to
to do
give.
this. Okay, it's okay, right? If you're wanting to take some priority time out for family, it's okay, it's fine.
We are there for you.
Yeah,
Like, my
yeah,
lord.
yeah. And
Great.
that in my experience, that goes a long way.
But then that's
More
so hard to do. Like, now, before you talk about it, let me add in another dimension to my question. This is really hard to do for many people, like, because we are all in a short term game trap, because we're just thinking about today, end of the day numbers. I see so many people not being able to take that shift, and you being so empathetic. I don't think there would be many leaders like you. It's like you're people who are setting examples rather than following an old late trend. So how do people take that shift? Because, like, I'm a cat person. What I realize about trust is that cats are very distrusting animals. So if you get need to get their trust, you have to go through a painful process wherein they either claw, scratch you, or bite you couple of times before realizing that this person means well for me. As a leader, it also means that you need to have that digestion for maybe things not going planned, because you're letting someone else prioritize something else over work. You have done that, and that's why you're talking about it. But then there's so many people who are not able to create that scope, wherein that, let me get clawed a couple of times before this person starts trusting me and falling back on expected way of working. Mm, uh, I'm not sure if it's an experience I'm sharing or it's a question that I want to pose to you, but I see this as a major gap between people I really admire versus people who are still managerial leaders.
uh, I think I get uh, the doubt or skepticism in your mind as you're thinking through this, right? So let me try and address that. I don't know how far we get, but let's make an attempt here. Okay. This is a part of also gaining trust, right? It's not just for that person. Now, there are two sides to look at it, right? One side would say, oh, why should I give leeway? Because if I give leeway, then tomorrow 100 people will come and ask me for this leave, right? That's one way of looking at it. Okay. It's to my mind, it's the more narrower view of things. The other side that I kind of subscribe to is that, okay, you give a person that space, that liberty. You're earning trust of that person, that, okay, this person means well for me. Like, he's not just interested in his results, but he also cares about me as a person, my needs, my uh, limitations, or, my urgencies and stuff like that. Uh, on the other side, I mean, as a corollary to this, it also sets the right positive example for others, saying that, hey, look, I mean, I might have helped person A, right?
Yeah.
But for all the other people who are looking at it, think that, okay, this guy is helping out this person. So tomorrow, if need be, I can also reach out and ask, right? So it's kind of setting a positive pull, positive example to you. And in a natural sense, it's kind of elevating you in their minds as well, right? People want to then kind of do stuff for you because they know that when their time comes, you will
Yeah,
do it,
exactly.
right? So it makes life that much more easier. Is what I feel. I subscribe to. So rather than looking at hundreds of people will come to me for an exception. I mean, it's like any rule book or any rule of any rule in the law book, right? There are people who are going to misuse it. There are rules which are meant to govern, but there are people who are going to misuse it.
Always.
Just because 5, 10, 15% people are going to misuse it, you don't get rid of the rule which benefits 85, 90, 95% people. Right? You're looking at a balance of probabilities and say, okay, more people are going to benefit from this than people are going to misuse this. Let me go ahead with this, right? And over time, the people who are misusing kind of keep getting low, right? And that's how I have always looked at things. And that, okay, if there is a policy, there's a benefit for the employee, there is a loophole which probably we might exploit, but then again, how many will do that? If it happens that majority are doing that, then the rule is wrong. Clearly it is not a good rule or an exception to make, and therefore you kind of scrap it out. But if more people are benefiting out of it in the right sense, you continue with it, right? You have to coach people who are kind of using wrong. Like, for example, somebody comes and says, "Hey, I'm not feeling well. I want a day off." Now, you have to trust that person. You're not going to say, "Oh no, show me your medical certificate or which doctor did you go."
So one of the reasons I'm starting this podcast and talking to exceptional people like you is because people are still doing that.
I know, and that's why this exists, right? I mean, that's a very you know uh, a, a very myopic vision, right? I mean, it just breeds distrust, right? Everything then becomes questionable.
Yeah.
And not just, I mean, people are learning from you. So if you are going to ask questions and not trust people, people will ask you questions back when it comes to their turn.
Their turn, yeah.
They will also not trust you. And trust is something that you place first. I mean, they say respect is earned, right? Or respect is given first before getting it. So same with trust. Trust is definitely given first and then only you get it. There's no way that you can expect that, oh, that's because I have a title now, people should trust me and they should just follow my word. No. You have to place trust in people first. And people should know that you are doing this. And then they will respond back to you with trust. Right? So there's no other way that I have done. And simple example, and one example that I go back to, this is way before COVID, right? Work from home was not a fancy concept, or not that appreciated at all. Very few gave exceptions, and even worse, bringing your work to home to work. So we had this female staffer. Okay, husband was out of station, and she had an issue. The kid had a break from school, and her maid didn't turn up, right? And she was like, Shini, I would need, to
Work from home.
to take the day off. Can we take the day off, right? I said, why, what happened? I mean, you're like, no, my kid is alone and I take care, my maid is not turned up. Okay. Work from home was something which was not looked upon favorably in the organization at all, right? Throughout the organization. So that was not the first preferred option. I said, okay, so then why don't you get your kid to the office? Like, am I allowed to do it? I said, fine, allowed or not, we will we will figure
We'll
that
look at it later.
doing it later. But right now it's just 40, 50, 60 of us here in the office, in that particular branch office, and say, where to get ticket? No, but he will disturb everybody. I said, look, being at home, you're the only one who's going to be focusing on him 8 hours a day. But here there are many people, and I'm sure 20 minutes each one can spare, and we can kind of keep him engaged.
Yeah.
Did that, so she was able to focus on her work, and the kid was happy because he was taken care of in the full day's work. And then he used to be in my office in the side table, he used to be playing with his cards and stuff, and I'm doing my work with my calls and other stuff. That kid is now grown up. But the thing is, it's a very small decision to make, a small, I would not even say a deviation, with just a simple decision which helped everybody, right? And then, the whole office had a good atmosphere with the kid around.
With the kid around, yeah.
So it was a happy day for most of us.
Most of the kids.
Yeah.
Most of
And kids instinctively know, okay, this person is not, kid friendly, so let me not go and disturb this person. But those who are, they keep the kid engaged, and the kid is also happy. So all in all, good work. So I think all I'm trying to say in this example is that small support here and there goes a long way in creating, a good atmosphere, a good trust as well, because that spoke positively for other people also, that look,
this is a space that
space that
values us. Yeah.
that values us, and I can discuss my issues freely, and I'm sure we'll, if not find, at least we'll make a positive attempt to find a solution to that, right? So people kind of open up more after that. And that was the experience which I had. So people started discussing their own troubles or limitations, and then okay, this is what is driving the person, this is what is holding back the person, and then you can relate better to them, and kind of try to address those specific aspects which hinders their performance, so that they can grow.
And that's another dimension of leadership that should be talked about more often, that the conversations that you have as a leader are not just limited to figures, numbers, targets, and what you've achieved. It is also about like what you're going through, how we can support you. Those kind of conversations, the moment you start nurturing those kind of conversations in your work equations, that is what lays the basic, groundwork for your teamwork,
So
I would say.
so sorry, but that particular deviation that we made, that helped us in reducing attrition. We had the lowest attrition among all the groups in the office. Practically just 1 in 60 people left. Okay, in the 2 years that I was there. We had people, who had major events happening in life. They took breaks, but they came back, right? And generally, everybody knew what support somebody else needed, and there was more openness in reaching out for help as well among the group. So these are 3 visible, tangible benefits that we saw of that one thing. We didn't take it knowing that this will lead to this, to be honest.
But then this takes us back to the same point where, like at the beginning, when we were talking about leading with fear versus leading with trust, the moment you start leading with trust, these are the things which fall in place for you.
Yeah.
Like, which I was like talking about Monster saying, like,
Right.
make them happy and they will have far more exponential results as compared to making them scream or screaming on them.
Absolutely, totally relatable.
Wow. It's been very profound talking to you. And, before I wrap up today's session, there's one last question that I want to ask you. In fact, 2 questions I want to ask you, Srini. First one is that if when you like hang your shoes and you decide to, maybe 10 years, 20 years later, you decide that, it's time for me to let down my hair, and hopefully you'll have hair by that time, let down my hair and take a retirement or just spend time on myself. What image you would like people to recall you? I know what they recall you with, those who work with you, but what would be a couple of things that you would like people to recall you for?
Um, I mean, I I haven't thought about that, but now that you kind of put that question, I guess I would like people to think of me as uh, a decent, good human being, at the end of the day, and somebody who helped them along their journey, helped them grow, helped them shed some of their inhibitions, or help them see different perspectives, which kind of enabled them in the long run. I would, in short, I would like to be remembered in that sense as a catalyst. That okay, uh, I don't care if I'm remembered as a main element or not. Okay, immaterial at the end of the day. Uh, I don't feel the urge to prove anything to the world as such. Just to prove myself, I should be able to hang my boots with the satisfaction at the end of the day. And that's the one day that I'll be satisfied, not just happy. But for people, yes, just as a catalyst, maybe.
And the last question would be that at the beginning, I was just comparing your life with a Bollywood movie. So, if a biopic is made on you, a Bollywood movie, um, what would be the title?
Ooh, I first of all, I don't think anyone would want to make a Bollywood movie on my life as such. So I mean, honestly, hard to think of.
Let's say you write a biography. So, what would be the title of the biography?
First of all, I don't think I'll write a biography. I don't want people to kind of.
Don't box yourself in possible like things which are not possible. You can do anything that you want. Like,
That's true for everybody, but I think I'm all I'm saying is I don't think I want to write a biography on myself. Okay. Oof. I think it will be Jack. Just borrowing from Jack of all trades, not master of none. There's at least something that I'm master of. I hope so. I think so. I don't want to kind of get into a self praise kind of a thing here, but yeah, I think I would call it as Jack.
just Jack.
Just
Hello.
Jack.
And let people complete. Yeah.
Yeah,
Bye.
so it's Jack, and that Jack comes from Jack of all trades, that phrase. So I think that will be it.
That's fantastic, Srini. I'm really feeling so grateful that you took out time, joined us for this episode, and as leadership source, the philosophy is that we find out the secret ingredients about what has shaped up somebody's leadership philosophy, their journey. And I must very frankly say I've been taken on a wild ride with you today, because what what I look at leadership from a very idealistic lens, you're somebody who's just doing it day in day out. So it's like, and I'm sure so many people who are looking at you today would realize that, hang on, there's complete another dimension to the leadership, perhaps which they need to explore, they can step into, and you've inspired so many of viewers today. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode, Srini. It's an absolute honor to know you.
The honor is all mine, sir.
No, I really hope that this episode helps to share your legacy with people, to let them know what leadership
Legacy is
is.
a very strong word. I mean,
But then you're leaving it behind. Like, as you move on.
everyone leaves footprints on stone. So and okay, I'm not just saying here this to be modest, but uh, you know, uh, everyone has a story to share, and I travel quite frequently, right? I use cabs a lot to airport and home to airport, and so on and so forth. And even the cab drivers there, they have a story to tell, and I've been amazed with some of the stories that these people have. All it needs is an audience to listen to. So everyone has something or the other to share, and as a corollary to that, we have something to learn from everybody, right?
So true.
And everybody has journey is inspiring. Everybody is trying to kind of make most of what they have, overcome their obstacles. Everyone has a struggle, and therefore everyone has lessons that they have learned that is worth sharing with people. And keep learning and keep moving forward is what I would say.
Thank you so much for the wisdom today, Srini.